4.1 Corruption in the medical establishment. One of the reasons as to why the medical establishment prefers giving pills over letting/helping the body do its job is because of the pharmaceutical industry. Before writing this book, I was aware of how money-hungry the pharmaceutical industry is, but I could not explain the intricate details of what was going on behind the scenes. As of writing this, I can safely say that there is no shortage of evidence when it comes to corruption in the pharmaceutical industry. In an article published in the journal Frontiers in Research Metrics and Analytics, Sergio Sismondo provides a lot of evidence for corruption in the pharmaceutical industry. Sismondo begins by tackling industry funding, which is when the pharmaceutical industry provides money for researchers to evaluate their products. Unsurprisingly, industry-funded clinical trials are more likely to promote the company in question's interests. Quote, "Put simply, if a pharmaceutical company funds a trial, the chances of results and conclusions in that company's favor are increased." In the study that Sismondo cites, it is made clear that the quality of the science does not differ when it comes to industry versus non-industry funded research. Quote, "When pharmaceutical and other companies sponsor research, there is a bias, a systematic tendency toward results serving their interests, but the bias is not seen in the formal factors routinely associated with low-quality science." Sismondo follows this up by saying that industry funding should by itself be a risk factor when it comes to bias. His reasoning is very simple to begin with. Giving researchers money creates conflicts of interests, which ultimately influences their actions, judgments, and conclusions. Alone, this would be a weak argument, and therefore Sismondo follows this up by citing a few interesting studies. The first two studies found that committees that produce clinical practice guidelines, i.e., what doctors are supposed to do in relation to certain health problems, assess evidence in a way that is favorable to companies and industries when financial conflicts are involved. This means that when you go to the hospital to check out a certain health problem, the doctor follows guidelines that have been influenced by financial incentives when treating you. The third study referenced in the same section shows that prescribing is influenced by payments made to doctors. My sister has autism. Me and my family notice immediate improvements in her behavior when we replace her standard potato chip snack with carrots, cucumbers, and yogurt as dip. Dietary changes are much safer than pills when it comes to improving autism, since you usually get results while completely bypassing any side effects. Still, my sister's doctor has prescribed lisdexamfetamine and atomoxetine to her. Luckily, I have been there to inform my parents that these drugs cause insomnia, headaches, vomiting, fatigue, loss of appetite, and many other horrible things. All of the above is still just the tip of the iceberg in comparison to what you are about to hear next. Quote, "Funding is rarely just funding. Most pharmaceutical company-sponsored clinical trials are designed, organized, audited, analyzed, and written up by the companies and their hired subcontractors. This is all work that happens behind the scenes, obscured by the form of academic publication. To understand the implications of what is said here, you have to know about contract research organizations, or CROs. A CRO is a company that helps pharmaceutical companies, among others, create research to support their products. According to the studies that Sismondo cites, 70 to 75% of Big Pharma's clinical trial funds go to CROs. To put everything into perspective, CROs earned $50 billion in 2020. Most of it coming from doing clinical trials. This means that for some reason, pharmaceutical companies highly prefer contracting CROs over independent researchers. The reason seems to be that CROs are very good at creating research that adheres to the interests of the company they are working with. In a study mentioned by Sismondo in the same article, Adrian Fu Berman and Susanna J. Dodgson go in depth on publication planning. Quote, "The term publication planning can refer to a research group's organizational timetable and plan. Within the pharmaceutical industry, however, the term describes the finely calibrated process by which clinical trials, commentaries, and other articles supporting the efficacy of particular products are written and released into the biomedical literature. This article describes how industry uses publication planning to sway medical and public opinion through the medium of medical journals. Essentially, the pharmaceutical industry controls the research being done on their products. It is important to understand that the problem lies in the deception, not in faulty research. The pharmaceutical companies are not lying about the research, they are misleading us. By choosing certain age groups, doses, and protocols, Big Pharma gets the data that they want. Getting a study with positive results means the world to these companies. As you can clearly see, using CROs together with publication planning is a great way of making certain organizations approve of a new product. Let us get back to the main article, since Mondo has more to say. Quote, even when it appears that industry-sponsored trials are led by academic or other actors, and that their subjects are recruited via independent clinics, hospitals, and academic medical centers, it is most likely that at a higher level they are run by CROs working for pharmaceutical companies and analyzed by company statisticians and others. Manuscripts are most likely drafted by ghostwriters on structures created by publication planners, and then shepherded through to publication by those planners with limited opportunities for their academic and other independent authors to contribute. The published articles, then, are largely creations of the companies, even if the nominal authors include independent researchers. All of this constitutes the ghost management of medical research. We could go on and on about how pharmaceutical industries manage research, but I think you get the point. The problem is that pharmaceutical companies are managing the research. How does it feel to know that the science behind the drugs that you have taken throughout your life is carefully planned by the people who are profiting from it? Naturally, there are many people who believe they're having a positive impact on the world within the system. Realize that most people within the pharmaceutical industry are not evil at all. The focus should not be on any individual, but on the structure and purpose of the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. As we now know, the pharmaceutical industry's main concern is profit, not health. Since the medical establishment and doctors in general are closely tied to the pharmaceutical industry, their advice and treatments should be analyzed thoroughly before being engaged with. This is a sample chapter in my book, The 6 Health Commandments. If you enjoyed it, go and get the book. Go to excellentlyhealthy.com and get the book. Because, again, this is just a bonus chapter, an extra chapter in the commandment of intelligence that I think is important if you don't realize that the medical establishment is corrupt. But now you do. Now you understand that the medical establishment is corrupt. If you want to learn a bunch of more things, like what health actually is, what the basis for health is, then get the book. Go and achieve excellent health. I know you can do it.